right, guys, let's get at it. Love seeing so many of you doing what you're doing. Hey, today is going to be an extraordinary day, and I am so excited to be able to spend time with my good friend, Mr. Dave Parker, and just going to unmute him just really quick here. There we go. All right. So, Dave and I have known each other a long time, and but what I don't want to do is skip over very quickly what it is that he's done and continues to do. And many of you may or may not know, right out of the get-go. In fact, Jeremy and I, Laguerre, were talking about how long we've known each other, and I think we're coming up on either 14 or 15 years, somewhere in that neighborhood, Dave. You've had to endure the pain of George Morrison in your life for nearly 15 years. So let me just read this to you. And this was something I know that was put together between Danette and Dave and his group. But it just says, David Parker became a licensed sales agent in 2007 and became an associate broker in 2015. He began his career in Century 21 Everest in July 2013, when the company acquired his brokerage, Elite Realty Group. His awards include the Salt Lake Board of Realtors 2015 March Sales Team of the Year, Century 21, the Whitworth Award, 2013 Ruby Award, Centurion, 2014 Centurion Producer, 15 and 16 Double Centurion Producer, and in 2017, 18, and 19, he was a Grand Centurion Team Producer. He is the team leader of the Elite Group, which is the top producing team for Century 21 Everest for the past 3 years. The Elite team was ranked in number 2 in units for all of Century 21 nationwide, producing over 350 units and grossing over $3 million in commissions. He currently lives in North Salt Lake with his beautiful wife, Marianne, and his 3 kids, Anna, Cardston, and Leah. So, man, it's so great to be with you, Dave. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, it's great. Well, man, I remember way back in the day, you got that CD where I think Rob Oakey gave it to you. And I think we began a friendship and a coaching relationship. And today, man, I consider you one of my closest mentors and friends, even on my side. You always are so good to give great counsel, as I know you will to many of us today. And so grateful for you spending some time with us, especially with so many things coming at us and so much business that you're doing. And so cool to see what you've done. So, hey, so just start us off with this. Who's Dave Parker? What's he all about?
Well, you just went down a laundry list of awards and things that
but that's not who he is. That's what he's achieved.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm a kid that grew up in West Valley City, Utah. I went to Granger High School. I had went on an LDS mission, came back, was trying to do the college thing, struggling going in college, trying to work and pay for bills and things like that. And had a good friend, Rob Oakey, that I had got my real estate license. My mom was a real estate broker and had got my real estate license and was struggling at real estate. And Rob, I was also part-time working at Discover Card, and Rob found out that I got my real estate license, and he said, "You got to meet my friend. He's a real estate guru. In fact, he's starting to do public speaking and has a coaching program." And we went to one of your events back in the day, and that was really when there was a spark that happened for me. I think we all have just different times in our life. George calls them defining moments. I think Tony says that as well. But I had one of those defining moments. For about a year of trying to do real estate, I was doing everything. I was anything that anyone told me to do, I was trying it out. And if it wasn't, tremendously successful right away, I gave up on it and tried something else. And, something that happened in one of those seminars where, you had spoken on prospecting and we had heard like knock out doors, try this, try that. But it wasn't until, you had said something about prospecting of just stop fighting it. Stop fighting the process. You're having to, your job is to talk and communicate with people. And it really sparked in my mind that finally someone had told me that is the key to success, is communicating with people that you necessarily don't want to talk to, or maybe they don't even want to talk to you, and do really, really well at it. So that was a spark that happened for me. And I had got involved with you on a personal level with doing some coaching. And It's been years and years and years, but slowly just increasing my production and building a team and growing from there. So that's kind of my real estate journey.
Well, and today, I mean, and what's so funny is full circle, here you are, one of our coaches for the ESS system or Everest sales system. And now you're the coach and helping people elevate their lives. And I know that they deeply appreciate that. And it's been a real fun journey, even just over these last 4 to 6 months and putting those things together, which has been really exciting. That you're saying something very profound. One, thank you. But number two, the profound thing is the resistance that we have to doing the job of real estate. And my observation is that nowadays I usually say, just submit to the process. And if you look at like the Nick Sabans of the world, if you're a college football fan, or if you're not even a college football fan, it's pretty amazing that, if you listen to his interview, every single time what he continues to talk about is a process. Follow the process, plug into the process, just do the process, stop resisting the process. And to your point, part of like such a significant part of that process is our ability to consistently communicate, to prospect, to visit, to talk, to be with people. And somehow we have gotten this idea that we think that we are a quote marketer, and that isn't what the public believes we are. And sometimes we change the job description of what people believe we are. So what do you think the job of a real estate agent is today? I mean, you've got a great team. I mean, people, some of them making from $100,000, of course, to $200,000-300,000 plus. I mean, you've really, really taken a team and amplified it to a whole other level like I've never seen before. So what would you say to an agent today that they should be doing? What would be the priorities of their day?
So my thing, I mean, just the kind of the overall thing, not necessarily a daily activity, but, where I found success is picking a lane. I think so often we try to do everything. And I've realized myself personally is the jack of all trades, the master of none is not where success lies. It's being that master and really becoming better than everyone else at that specific lane. That was one of the first things that we had sat down and started doing coaching and what I do as well as a coach is I'll sit down with them and we'll talk about the different lead types, and I'll say, let's discover what lead type that you want to focus on, and maybe have 2 or 3 max, but there's 30 or 50 different lead types that you can actually work. I like to pick 2 or 3 lead types and really focus on how do you master that? How do you become better than everyone else at that specific lead type and go really, really deep on it instead of go wide?
Well, and let's make sure. So like if I take you, right, you may share the rest of the story, but just, I look at early on in my career where somehow I felt, I don't know what it was. Can't even speak to why, but I fell in love with for sale by owners. I didn't call expired listings. I didn't call my sphere. Everything like a laser came down for me on for sale by owners. And in my first year in business, I mean, way back when I was 22 years old, I sold 33 homes. I had no training really what to speak of. And all I did was focus on that one part of the craft. Then I began to expand it to other ones after I really dialed that one in. And I know that you have a part to that story that you're going to share. And I just cannot express enough agreement to what you're saying. And that is master something, not everything, one thing.
Well, the nice thing about mastery as well is once you've mastered it, you can start leveraging that. If you really understand a specific lead type, that's really what's happened with me and within this team. And we have a very large team. And you had mentioned this. I mean, I remember back in the day, you had said, hey, it is easier to do 100 transactions than it is to do 50 transactions. And most people are like, well, that's silly. That doesn't make any sense. And, the follow-up phrase is if you're doing 100 transactions, I promise you, you're not doing them yourself. You've started to figure out how to leverage, and surround yourself with high caliber people.
Right. Whether it's buyer's agents, you remember my team,
assistants.
Right? Chris Martindale was on my team. He was one of my listing agents, and I helped him understand how to take listings to both specifically for sell by owners and expired listings. Because I had mastered that side, I knew I could teach him how to do it. Yep. Right?
Perfect. Yeah. And so that's what I've realized as well is in order to you start to leverage and start to expand your business, you're going to have to be able to master it where you're, I've seen so many team leaders try this, hey, let me take someone, or I want to hire, maybe a buyer agent or hire a listing agent, and they'll start trying to have them do something that they've never done themselves.
Yeah.
And it's literally almost impossible, to get someone to start doing something very, very successful that you've never done yourself, and it's so much easier for me when I had figured, the lead type that I really was interested in is working web leads. It probably a little bit of I had tried for sell by owners for a while and was having some success, but I love the idea of selling more me, not necessarily selling, the idea of commissions and the listing presentation, but just selling the process, that, hey, come out with me, let me show you, these homes, if these homes don't work. I really like that idea that long as they're connected to me, it didn't really matter which house they bought. I just wanted to make sure that if they bought through me. And that was something that really drew my interest level on there. And I had started working web leads, but what I'd realized is I got to a point where there wasn't more, any more time in the day. But one thing I figured out is I really mastered how to take, a person that had signed up on a website from going to my website to working with me with a buyer broker and closing them. And I could take another individual and say, hey, let me show you my process, and helping them and helping, really, change the trajectory of their career allowed me to receive another stream of revenue. And what I've done is just I've expanded that over a large group of people, and to make sure it's a win-win. Make sure that they're succeeding, and making sure that because of their success that I'm getting some of that success as well. So
right. Well, I mean, and you're literally coaching them through it and showing them the path. I wrote down a note right here as you were saying. It reminded me last night I was watching, guys, if you haven't done it. In fact, I was just visiting with Ken Gretsch by text a few days ago about The Last Dance, Michael Jordan's Last Dance. And Jennifer and I are watching episode number 7. I think there's only 8. Maybe there's more coming. I don't even know. But I thought it was interesting. People would talk about how mean or how intense a Michael Jordan was. And he then is quoted as saying, hey, I would never ask you to ever do anything that I'm not already doing myself. And I think there is a great principle. A lot of people have a team so they don't have to think. Their mindset is, I'm going to get an assistant so I don't have to work. I'm going to get a buyer's agent on my team so I don't have to work. I'm going to get other people around me so I don't have to work. There's maybe a time for that when we're in that legacy play, but very few agents I know that are in the legacy play of their business. That the mindset of saying, well, I'm going to get people around me so I don't have to work, versus, yes, I want to leverage my time so I can do more with my time. But some reason there's this idea that if I put people around me, I'll never have to work again. My goodness gracious, I've got hundreds of people around me and I've never worked harder. But I'm also not in a play where I have no intentions of retiring for years and years from now. So I don't need to set my life up to where I'm sitting here going, okay, I don't have to work anymore. Sometimes I love also what Jim Rohn said. He said, some people say, if I had $1 million, I would never work again another day in my life. And Jim Rohn responds back with, you know what? That's probably why the good Lord has not let that happen, because you're not supposed to not be working. So I think it's interesting. So I love what you're saying, Dave. That's great. So switch gears. So just again, though, there's the mastery of a craft, but get specific. Like, tell me what you would, if an agent was sitting in front of you, what would you tell them is a minimum that they should be doing, or a standard, a daily standard for the activities they need to do in a day?
Well, I feel one is to create your standards. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Is you have to have your standards, depending on what your lead type is, really where your skill sets are and your conversion. You got to figure out, okay, this is my why. This is what we're trying to accomplish. But, I have a couple agents that I'm coaching that we're talking about their goals, and we're trying to, and a lot of times we're adjusting their standards according to what their success level is. If they're seeing success and they're hitting it, those standards are great. If that's not getting the success, we need to work on either raising their standards, raising the amount of contacts they're currently having, or really, Tony Robbins talks about is adjusting the why. Adjusting your roadmap or your blueprint. Most people.
Let's make sure not necessarily changing the goal, right? But change the approach to the goal.
Correct.
right?
Correct.
So
Correct. I mean,
change, like, here's my goal, man. I want to earn this much money. I want this many deals. But the way I'm somehow doing it, right? My roadmap's not getting me there. And people say, oh, I've tried everything. No, you haven't. No, you haven't tried it. You've tried like maybe 3 or 4 things. So what must you do to change your approach so you can achieve the goal?
correct. And I'm, I have some standards. I mean, within the team, I have certain kind of minimum standards. We have some things that we expect, but we also just really focus on making sure the minimum happens. There's
so in today's
things,
market, if an agent who is trying to get things rolling, you and I've had really close conversations about this, about watching people who have checked out, not talking to people, not calling people, watching it in both Utah and California. Tomorrow or Sunday morning, I'm heading out to California to visit a handful of our people. And, the thing is that people somehow think that, successes of agents in Utah versus the successes of agents in California, that there's just radical differences. There's not. The radical difference is this, and we all know it. It's the way in which people think and the way they're responding to this virus, because there's no excuse at this point for people to not be communicating and talking to people, whether it's by just listed, just sold, internet leads, sphere of influence, for sale by owners, expires, and every single state has identified us as an essential business. So there is no excuse for people not to be talking to people who especially need the income and need the dollars and taking care of their family. There's like these people, okay, so what would you say then is the minimum someone should be doing who is really at this point just paralyzed? Give me some answers to this. How many hours should I be prospecting every day, and give it to me in a week? A minimum standard.
So the big thing that we talked about and something we're projecting is 80% of your day needs to be focused on money-making activities. 80%. Okay. So if you're working 8 hours a day, that means 6 hours a day. And it really, money-making activities are a few things. I mean, belly-to-belly appointments,
Right, well, hold on. We're going to get there. Hold on. Time out. Minimum prospecting. Like, let's say you don't have a slew of buyers and sellers appointments. Minimum prospecting, you have like 1 or 2 buyers at best. Maybe you have an active listing or 2. If I'm sitting in front of you and I want to sell 30, 40 homes a year, give me a minimum. Just give me a number. I know what my number is. I'm going to tell you what my number is. I want to hear your number.
Yeah, I think if you don't have buyers and you don't have sellers and your business is stale, you need to be spending 6 hours of your day prospecting.
Thank you. No, dude, serious. That's what I want to hear, is that if 80% of your time is spent on those activities and you're working an 8 to 10 hour day, it means that you could be spending 6 to 8 hours talking on a phone. And people go, right, well, wait a second. But if you, to your point, right, were you on a phone at Discover Card 15 years ago?
We had 8 hour shifts. I was on the phone 7 hours and 15 minutes.
That's my point. Somehow we think that we have this minimum of, 15 minutes. I talked to 3 of my sphere, and it's not enough right now. Not enough. What would you say?
I want to just make sure that you understand is you hear that number and it seems very, very daunting. But money-making activities are belly-to-belly appointments. That's negotiating contracts. There's lots of things that end up happening. So when your business is going,
lead follow-up, right?
Yeah, lead follow-up. When your business is up and going, then yeah, you can crank it down a lot less and make sure that, again, it's a balance between, are you hitting your goals? And if you're accomplishing your goals and you're prospecting an hour a day, then great. That's what your standard is. I need to prospect an hour a day to make sure I hit my goals, I hit my dreams, I hit my all the things I'm trying to accomplish.
Because the momentum's there, right? The accumulation effect is beginning to occur.
Right. So that's the biggest thing, is if you're hitting your goals. If you're not, and you don't have buyers, and you're not working with sellers, and you're not negotiating contracts, and 80% of your day needs to be focused on those activities, you're really left with a couple things: prospecting and lead follow-up. And so that's
Dave, that doesn't sound very much fun. That's not real sexy. That's not, like, I mean, you can just feel, and I can't see anybody else because I have your screen up, but I can just feel the resistance of people hearing that. You mean I would have to prospect for that long forever? No, to your point, that if you did that for probably, this is my opinion, it's somewhere between 2 and 3 weeks. If you prospected like that for 2 or 3 weeks, you would be able to prospect 1 or 2 hours because of all the momentum that you have created over that 2-3 week period of time to get yourself back. Correct. To get yourself dialed in. Here's now again, because we're going to run out of time. I love talking to you, Dave. Thank you for all this. So tell me this: would you encourage, or what would you state to an agent to protect their mindset, and or what are you doing to elevate your mindset, your belief system, keep your confidence dived in, just focused in? What are you doing personally, and what would you encourage others to do?
I mean, again, I have some standards within all the equities in my life. One of the things I do for mindset is I really enjoy Audible. I listen to things in my car, when we're driving a lot as real estate agents. I mean, Zig Ziglar talked about, Car University.
Auto University, right?
Yeah,
Yep,
Auto University.
Exactly.
And I really took that to heart years ago, but I've really elevated that lately. Last year, I had a goal, and I put an accountability with Austin Kells to read 52 books or listen to 52 books.
Right.
I put $10,000 on it, so,
I love it.
So there wasn't a chance in the world that I wasn't going to get through 52 books. And I had that same thing with him this year. So I'm, reading about a book a week. Some weeks it's a little bit more, and some weeks it's a little bit less, depending on the length of the book. But for me, that's been a huge thing. The other thing is just participating in events. We have a standard within the team that we go to all the summits. We have a monthly meeting that we come together and we work on training. I attend the Tony Robbins Unleash the Power Within events. I've done some of the Mike Ferry stuff in the past, but for me, it's been important to participate in things that are really focusing on your mindset and your skill set, and always having those things in place. I think it's very easy, and I've had times in my career where you get so busy and so focused on the activity, the bird in the hand, that you really don't take a moment to step back and say, I really need to make sure I'm retooling and I'm really protecting that mindset, because if that starts to go, it's very easy for the whole business to slip.
I love that. I love the fact that, what I hear you is the quest for truth, the quest to protect your mind, the quest to making sure that you're elevating yourself every single day. So tell me this, what would be your overarching counsel to an agent today? If you just sat down and you met them for the first time, you knew there was a little bit of a struggle inside, you knew that that they were just not totally dialed in, what advice, counsel would you give to them?
I would say one is you have, especially within this organization, and some I know that are not part of this organization, but just to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with good people. Get with a broker, make sure that you have an accountability set up. We had talked, and I've had so many different accountabilities over the years, and sometimes the immediate pain is worth putting in place so it protects you from yourself. I think there's a little bit of a natural man or natural woman within all of us not to do hard things. And so some of the things that we're asking agents to do and we're trying to do and commit to ourselves are very difficult. And so having some things in place to really protect you from yourself, to make sure that you're hitting your goals is really important. So for a lot of times agents, we know the answer. A lot of times it's, I got to prospect. I got to show up in the office. I got to wake up at a certain time. I got to make sure I'm exercising. There's a lot of little things that we all know the answers, but a lot of times we just don't get to it. And if we don't have the discipline or that muscle that's been built yet, that's the time to reach out to someone and say, hey, if I don't do this, I'm going to do, I owe you this or whatever. Especially when the motivation and the energy is high, get with someone and have an accountability in place. I know you've had things. We've had to eat cat food. We've had to send a letter to an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of weird things that we put in place, but that's what you have to do sometime to get the engine going and getting that discipline figured out.
So I've always said, Dave, this is spot on. So the accountability is like coaching, right? And I know a number of people yesterday or 2 days ago set up some times with our strategists and assistant strategists, Brad Eads and Brandon Earl and our coaching team. But I sit there and I look at the fact of how simple this is. This morning, Dave, so many things coming at me. I run 9 different companies. We've got 1,000 different agents, 150 and different employees, moving parts everywhere. And I knew I needed to stay on schedule. So what did I do today? Today, early this morning, I said last night in text to Gretchen and to Sam, I said, I must be in the conference room at this exact time, or I owe each of you $100, $100. And guess what, man? To the minute I was there on time, I didn't pay the $100, because what's more painful, paying the $100 or just showing up on time?
Totally.
I do this with Brian Noel for years when we go play racquetball. At 5:30 in the morning, I'd just simply say, Brian, I need a little help this week because I seem to be struggling getting here. And I'd show up like 8 minutes late, 3 minutes late, 5 minutes late. And I'm like, early in the morning, and it got me to where I'm like, you know what? If I'm not standing at the door right here at the racquetball, I'll pay you $100 for every day this week that I'm not here. And it may seem like, well, that seems like, come on, man, like, aren't you strong enough? Yeah, I am. There's areas of my life that I'm highly self-disciplined. Weirdly for me, Dave, prospecting is like, I am like a laser as an agent when I would prospect. I didn't need anyone to hold me accountable to prospecting. It was really weird. But going to the gym, I did. You know, to your point, reading the books, I wrote that down, by the way. I'm going to do some accountability with you on that reading. I like that idea, by the way. My point to you is that, man, so many people somehow forget that accountability is the insurance policy to living their dreams. It's not about being weak. It's about being human. It's about stepping forward and saying, man, what would it be if I didn't, contact 15 people today? Maybe it's 30 people a day for you. And if I don't do that, I pay my buddy. All right, I buy him lunch every day that I don't do it. I used to do $5 lunch, simple things. Like you said, really painful things like cat food or writing letters. I've had agents where they had to write a letter, and if they didn't do their job, do their role, they would send it off to like you said, an ex-girlfriend or an ex-husband or an ex-wife. And man, we'll talk about focus, man. They were focused, because what's more painful? Sending a $25 check. I remember I did this with an agent, a $25 check to their ex-husband and saying, hey, I was just thinking about you. I wasn't able to keep my word and my commitment, so I thought I would pay you $25 if I didn't. That's what the card said. Guess what, man? This lady was like a laser on her prospecting. And people say, well, that's just ridiculous. Is it? Is it ridiculous that she now is an extraordinary agent still in the Everest system, is kicking butt, taking names, and now is even like one of these like icons of our industry? Is it that weird? Not to me. It's the insurance policy for your success.
The big thing, George, is if you'll do that over a period of time, I mean, there's a lot of different stats and stuff. They say 21 days or whatever to create a habit. But if you'll do it for a period of time, it becomes a lot easier. And it becomes who you are. It becomes normal and becomes who you are. I mean, I had an accountability with Chad Wagstaff. I was similar thing. I was struggling on my time frame in the morning to get up to go to the gym. I had gained a bunch of weight, and I did $1,000 accountability with Chad that I worked out with him 12 days. I signed up for Orange Theory, went with him. And the first month I didn't hit it. I hit 11. And he gave me a double or nothing. It was going to be $2,000. And so the next month I went 12 times. I got the bare minimum. I didn't go any more than I needed to. But it was about month 3 where I realized, actually I kind of like this. This is kind of who I am. And it started becoming so much easier to wake up in the morning. But I would say most of us, any individual should really take all the areas of our life. We focus a lot on career because this is what our business is and this is what we're doing. But I would say every single area or equity of your life is really make a roadmap and say, hey, if my life was perfect, if this area of my life was exactly the way what I would want it to be, describe that. I've done that earlier this year. I've done that early when we were coaching, but I have went through every single equity of my life and I just defined what it is if everything was perfect. And then I kind of just started working backwards. I started saying, okay, I'm not even close in this area of what I'm describing. What are the steps that need to happen to start heading me towards that area and that description of what I described of what perfection is in that area? And I start working backwards and things that I know that I'm, need to get put in place that I'm not doing. And I know that I don't necessarily have the discipline or I can't necessarily rely on myself. I'll reach out to people that I know will hold me accountable and make sure I put some things in place. And the big thing is make sure you're having someone that's really someone that will hold you accountable. That was an early mistake. My best friend, Jeremy Laguerre, an old, business partner when we owned the brokerage, we were the worst at holding each other accountable. We'd have these diets.
You can't have it be your best friend.
Oh yeah.
Someone who you know is going to do it. Yep.
Yeah. We'd have these accountabilities on our diet. I remember one time we had this accountability in a diet. We were at this really, really healthy restaurant ordering this meal. And we literally both looked at each other and said, I'll break if you break. And we went over to the Pie Pizzeria. The whole pepperoni.
And that's it, right? I won't prospect if you don't prospect, and we won't hold each other accountable.
Right.
And dude, you see that happen. You see it happen. It's crazy. I love that. That is a great story. I love that. All right, man, we got 3 minutes left. So here's the question. Give us a book that someone should read. Your favorite book.
Fanatical Prospecting. We just did it as a team. Jeb Blunt is his name. Very, very powerful deal. It just will smack you in the face and say, stop fighting it. You got to prospect. You got to talk to people. I mean, and the biggest thing is I look at, again, I'm not nearly where I want to be. I want to go further. I want to, continue to develop a lot of different areas of my life, but I've had some success in this business. I've looked at the journey on this, and it's like anyone can do this. And you say this a lot, George, and we've seen the success of people that you would never necessarily think would have the success. I'm that person. I remember times in my life that I got, job interviews where I thought, this was a shoe-in. I remember Verizon Wireless when I had, was young and I was in school, and I remember, trying to get a job and I didn't get the job, and I was, felt down and out, and I realized that, it doesn't define who you are. I mean, so if you're in a spot in your life that you're thinking, oh, maybe I'm not gonna be able to do this, maybe real estate, I promise you that the success is there. It's available. There's so much abundance in this industry. All we're doing is helping people. You're having to get in front of them. Yes, there's the difficulty, but what we're doing is helping them with, really accomplish their goals and dreams. And anyone can do that. Anyone that can learn the skills and learn what to say and follow a script until they get very, very comfortable doing it. And that would be something I would just project to everyone is, regardless of where you are, if you've never done a transaction or you're stuck at 20 transactions a year and you need to go to the next level, I promise you that it's available for you. You can do it. You just have to develop the disciplines, develop some maybe additional skill sets, and you will elevate your life. You'll elevate your financial temperature where you'll get comfortable to new levels that you haven't felt before. But it's available for all of us.
Love that. Thank you. Let me ask you one last question. What would you say is important if someone who wants to either two concepts, someone who has a desire to be on a team and be part of something, but there's a lot of people who say, man, is it time for me to create my own team? Should I be a team leader? Like what would you say to someone who says, Dave, I'm curious, should I have my own team? What would you say to them?
The number one thing for me is if you have not mastered, where you're supposed to be at, where you're at capacity, that's the big thing for me is if, anywhere between 30 and 50 transactions, depending on your family situation, most agents can handle about that much business before they need to start leveraging other abilities. And at that point,
so make sure I'm clear. So you're saying, look, master your business to a certain point, not trying to escape the business, but then begin working as a team so you can leverage even more of your craft and more of what you've mastered.
Right. So the two things, and we've talked about this for years, the two things that always need to happen anytime you're either bringing on a teammate or you're starting a team or an assistant is the two things that have to happen is you have to make more money and your quality of life has to increase. And if you get to a point in your production where the only way to have more production is to screw up your quality of life, or you're now no longer a good dad, no longer a good husband, because you're at capacity. You're at 30 to 50 transactions a year, and there's just no way to increase your business anymore. That's when you start leveraging. That's when you bring someone on and say, okay, now I'm going to help them hit their goals and dreams in order for, and this is kind of how I always look, and I say this to any person I interview for my team, is my job as a team leader is, in order for this to become an asset in their life, for them to be on my team, for them to be able to give up some of their commission to be on the team, I have to make them money. They have to be successful, because if they're successful, this becomes an asset. If they're not having success, then being on the team is a liability. So I look at it differently. My job is, how do I have them making, for me, it's a six-figure income. If I can make them $100,000 a year minimum, then being on the team is worth being on the team for. So you really invest the time, the energy, right? I know that 100%. You and Chad Wagstaff, who are two great coaches. One, you coach your team every day, right? Or every week.
right?
Right.
They're getting coached between the two of you, right? Which is seamless as to why I know you're such an extraordinary coach. So, okay, that's good, man. I love that. I mean, that's such great counsel. All right, give us your final thought.
Great organization, guys. I have been at bad organizations. You guys, I've surrounded myself at different times in my career with people. I remember I went on a home tour where they had a listing that I wasn't having hard conversations with my seller. And I remember I went, like, I'm going to sign up for one of these home tours. I literally went on this home tour and spent 3 hours with a group of individual agents that were absolutely awful. I mean, they were not producing. It was like, and I remember I called George after and I just thanked him for the organization, for what's being projected, for what the help and what's available within this organization. And I literally, I felt like I needed to go and shower. I was just like, whatever they have, I don't want in my life. I think we're so blessed to be a part of an organization that really has the framework of success, that really is looking at self-improvement to succeed at a high level. Make sure you're involving yourself. Don't escape from it. Because, George had talked about in a summit about the vent that happens when things start to heat up and the pressure starts to happen. Are we immediately just opening an event to relieve that pressure? Because
right.
We do that as agents. If all of a sudden we feel the pressure, like I've set these goals and these expectations, and we have all these meetings where all these agents are successful and they're talking about their success, and it makes me feel a certain way. The easy thing to do is open that vent is, distance yourself from that. Don't do that. Make sure that you're participating. Make sure that you're getting involved. Make sure that you're talking to a broker or another agent and get some advice and help and some accountability contracts put together. Just make sure that you're involving yourself. That would be my biggest thing is the foundation and what we have available here, and the brokers that are projecting, this message has been proven to have tremendous success. Just make sure that you're plugging into it. Don't try to be a person that goes ahead and figure it out themselves. Just model the people that are currently doing it.
Yeah, then there's so many. I mean, you've done so much. Dave, thank you. Thank you for being such a great agent, a professional, of course, an incredible leader in the industry. And thank you for being my friend and so many other people who revere you and respect you. Make sure that you get a chance to look at those chats before you close yourself out, because lots of very, very wonderful things said about your contribution. And just thank you for taking the time. Thank you for being who you are. And to your point, and to Jeremy, your best friend's point, and that is that it's interesting is that Everest has all of these resources available. And I love, since you've mentioned Tony Robbins, I love one of the things he says, there's very few lazy people. There's very unresourceful people. And there's resources that are within this organization that are there to help people, to pull them up, to get them out of their own way. And that doesn't mean they need to do everything. And to Jeremy's point, he always says, it's like a buffet, man. You don't need to hit every morning meeting. You don't need to hit every single thing. But what will you take? What will you elevate and take away so that you can make sure you're being resourceful, so that every one of us, which I know you have a great passion for anyone who comes into your path, that they live their dreams, they achieve their goals, and they have a beautiful life. So man, thank you. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.